I know I said the series was 10-part, but there were so many great outtakes in our conversations because many of us hadn't spoken in 20 years that there were so many different tangential and arbitrary conversations that I just had to put together basically an outtakes and random clip episode. So here it is. And in this episode, you're going to hear Alison Goldberg, Amanda Marchand, Mira Hecht, Ricardo Rivera, Sonia Heinrichsen, Joram Wahlberger, Lizea Lyons, and Peter Wu. This is truly the last episode of the series. Thank you very much for listening. Through the course of my conversations through this podcast, I've done 220 episodes now. So I've had lots of conversations and learned lots of mistakes that I made in my career. Were there any, so I call them mistakes. You don't have to call them that, but like, were there any things that you're like, oh, if I hadn't done that, maybe I could have been more successful or whatever? It's something that I call it a mistake.
I don't know. If the goal was to, have gallery representation, then perhaps the ultimate mistake was going to the Art Institute in the first place, because I don't feel like there were any connections or networks that helped propel me in that direction. And I think if I had gone to another city where the arts were more integrated and vibrant and there were more galleries, those institutions might have had connections that could have, helped me do that.
It's interesting you say that because I've run into that a number of times where people talk about how their professor in grad school introduced them to a
Yeah.
gallery kind of
Yeah.
thing. Whereas like my experiences in San Francisco was all of the professors were incredibly selfish and they had no interest in introducing us to their whatever, their connections, their curators, their gallerists,
Well,
the
it
whatever.
was also tenuous for them too.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many artists. There's so many people trying to do this.
But what I'm finding interesting about the way you're talking about it is like I find that idea fascinating. Like if I were to go back to that time and choosing a grad school, and if I were to go to look at a city, let's say, and look at the galleries, and find a gallery I liked, and then looked at their roster and found what school they seemed to pull from, and then chosen to go to that school so that I then could have gotten introduced to that gallery. That's a way more cunning, intelligent way to do that process.
Sure. But is that the ultimate goal? I mean, in hindsight now, it's like,
It's too cunning. It's
yeah,
too capitalistic.
yes.
Yeah. No, if I had a choice going back, I would come to Europe is what I
Mhm.
would have done because like fuck Europe, it just done it right. My wife just finished her master's program, and you know what? How much it cost her?
How much?
0.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, that's the way it should be for all education, not just the arts.
All right. On a big sort of thing, like, do you look back over your career and think about any potential mistake, or not potential, but any mistakes that you made that you're just like, that was a mistake?
I look back, I don't think I made any mistakes. I mean, I think I've sort of swerved. I went through literature for a decade and, I was really in the writing scene in Montreal and I was really, at the forefront of what I was doing, but I was always making visual work too. And I was trying to figure which am I going to choose? Am I going in, down path A or path B? So it was a little slower, but that was so formative for me. It's really I'm still the work I still write the books I publish. There's text in them, or I don't know. It's just really it's a part of the work I'm making now. The question, did I make any mistakes? I don't have any regrets, so I'd say no. I think that moving to New York and having children and trying to figure out the financial was really hard, and it threatened me maybe not being an artist because it was not really working out. It was really a painful time, although I loved being a mother and I was living in New York. It was so hard to do that juggle and to be successful at the different parts of it. So now when I'm working with artists, I think one reason that I wanted to really, solidify the artist coaching is because I feel that I have things to impart to others who may be in a similar position. And I know the pitfalls. I know the struggle. I know the things that I could, gently nudge in a direction that isn't so hard. Well, it doesn't need to be so hard. It doesn't really need to be hard. It doesn't need to be that kind of a struggle. And I think that I can help people that way. So that's been also useful. I think the failures or those difficult parts end up really teaching you. So I don't know why you're laughing, but that's
I'm laughing because Lizzie and I were discussing about how at one point or another you have made both of us cry.
oh boy.
And you're sitting here going, I will gently nudge you. And I'm like, no, you don't. No. You're not a gentle nudger. You like beat us down.
Gentle nudger. I have learned to be more of a gentle nudger. I have learned to, because I think I've also learned, like, that artist part of yourself, whatever that part is, don't just take away the art. The part of yourself that needs to express something is like that. If you go back to when you're a child, you're 2 or you're 3 or you're 4, it's just like pure energy. You can't really judge that. You can't really knock it about. And that's the part that we need to protect. And so if you're working with people, it's not about the work being good or bad. It's about bringing out that energy, So, I mean, I am definitely hard if I'm critiquing your words and an essay that you've written or an artist statement that needs work. I mean, it's just the brass tacks. It needs to, move up a level to get what you want. And then you get through customs and then you move on to making the work you need to make. So, I mean, there are parts where it's just, practical criticism. But I think that I do try to, I do try to just encourage. I think that is really key, and also genuinely kind of fascinated and interested in all the work that people make. I love all the different, directions that an artist can take, and really feel that it's fun to support that and fun to see that grow. So I don't know that that is true, but I am sorry if I made you cry, but you probably benefited from it. That's what I'll say. I'm with you, Mosea. I'm sure you're better for it now.
I remember a very particular time sitting down in your studio down the hill from school, and you and I had a very heated debate about the use of a comma versus a semicolon.
Did we? I have no recollection of that.
I do. I remember being so pissed off leaving that conversation with you.
But who was right?
Oh, I'm sure you were, quite honestly. Yeah, no. I don't know a damn thing about grammar. I don't even know why I felt the need to defend my poor grammar, but for some reason I did.
I think I was still walking around with Strunk and White, The Elements of Style, at that point in my back pocket to edit. But yeah, I don't know.
I don't even know what that is. That shows you how bad my grammar knowledge is, so that's fine.
You probably won't use this answer, but I don't really think would we do anything differently? Is that the question?
Sure. There's no right answer to this. It's just a question.
I feel very grateful. I feel part of the gratitude comes from having had struggle and knowing what it feels like to be just having things to a certain degree work. You can make work and then there's a community that will view it, or you make work and you're able to produce a book, or I can apply to a residency and I can go and have an incredible experience and continue to move my work forward. So everything, that all the ups and downs, and there have been the downs are really a big part of the ups. I've been figuring things out along the way. I wouldn't want to change them because I wouldn't be here now. They've been really invaluable.
Are there any things that choices that you sort of maybe wish you did differently? Sort of just like a little bit of hindsight of like, maybe I could have done that better, or maybe even something, a mistake that you made or that was made sort of on your behalf or on your career that you sort of wish you had known about or could have sort of tried to avoid. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I don't think I have anything like that. The only thing that I can say that I feel that I don't do a lot is even if you're in a gallery, you need to keep in contact with that gallery. You need to send them images of your new work. You need to at least do that. You need to say, "Hey, I'd like to have another show," or "When can I schedule another show?" So you need to be visible to the gallery. And so I know sometimes I'm so into the work that, I won't get the photographs done of the work quickly enough. I won't send and say, "Hey, this is the new body of work I'm working on. I'd like you to look at them." And so just, I think that's been something that I've lagged on, just really keeping in contact with people, showing, what I'm doing. And so I think I could have been better, or I could be better at that. But no, I don't think any missteps. I'm just, yeah, I feel great about what's happened. Yeah.
Over the course of your career, are there any sort of choices that you might have done differently, or what I put the word mistakes, or directions that went that you sort of wish it had gone differently, whatever word you want to put to it.
I think that my kind of resistance to, I would say, accumulation of wealth debilitated my development. Living in the Bay Area, in Oakland, when we did, we could have afforded a small condo, but we didn't want to. We were scared of whether the economy would collapse and how are we going to pay for this. And so if we would have bought something, I remember looking and some of the condos in the area where we're at, they were just like $60,000. We could have afforded it. And this is in 2002, 2003, right after graduation. And it would have been the same payment as renting. And so I didn't understand equity and the accumulation of all that stuff. And I didn't care about it, but it would have made our lives so much easier.
Now that you have hindsight of 20 years, do you feel like there were any things that you may have done, made sort of some missteps, or some things that you may have chosen to have done differently with the wisdom and age that you have now looking back, that you might have done different choices or anything like that?
You mean in art school?
No, I'm just meaning, well, it could be the choices of going to art school, the choices in art school, or anything that has happened since graduation, like any sort of choices in your career.
I mean, in art school, I would say I'm not sure if the new genres major was a wise decision, simply because at the time, as I said earlier, I was trying to apply for teaching positions for a while. And it seemed to me that with that specific MFA in new genres, there were way less jobs than, let's say, somebody who had graduated in ceramics or painting or sculpture, because it's broader. Ours was not very broad. Plus, at some point, there was always this connection between like new genres art, video art, gaming, and web design. And that is
And graphic design.
and graphic design. The applied art somehow came into that. And if because most schools do not have a new genres department. So the only departments we would have fit into that would have considered our application were like had to do with like video design or graphic design or web design or gaming design. And I was like, this was not what like so far away from anything I was interested in and I was doing. So I feel like the majoring in new genres, as cool as it seemed at the time, in terms of application, in terms of applying to teaching positions, it was not a good choice. That I think could have been different, even though, yes, I don't know, but at the time, I had no idea this would be something that I would later even think about,
I thought it would be the other way around. I thought people would be so impressed by a new genre thing that they'd want to hire me. But I ended up, because primarily I was a photographer, so like the new genre was just like a part of what I did. And so I kept applying for photography teaching positions, and they were always like, who the fuck is this guy who doesn't have a master's in photography applying for this photography teaching job? And I'm like, but I did photography as my master's thesis, like that was what my education was in, but they didn't care. Yeah, I mean, I had an equal amount of problems. My first full-time teaching job was actually in a visual communications technology department, not the art department.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds exactly. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think it's not the other way around. It's just that that I had no idea, and maybe I even thought it's cool. It's a cool thing to have new genres, and it's so multidisciplinary because we did so many things, right? But I had no idea that later on this could actually get in the way because, as you were just saying, if you apply for a photo department, they're like, well, this person's degree is not in photography. And they didn't have a new genres department. I mean, what school has that? It's very few. It's very rare. Maybe they have a video department, but most likely not, So I felt that was basically, that was a pretty big deficit.
Did you feel like at any point you sort of maybe in hindsight made some career choices that you might like think of as like, oh, that was a mistake, or something you might have wanted to have done differently, other than the gallery choice? Because we already talked about that.
No, the gallery choice was not a mistake. Maybe I would.
That to me falls into a possibly wanted to do differently category.
That's actually could be one of them, that maybe in hindsight I could have been a little bit more. I should have not maybe closed the door on Catherine Clark Gallery. I could have maybe been a little bit more calm like now and more mature about it, and maybe just reduce the amount of connection, but not completely shut the door. She was a very hard worker, very dedicated. You learn over the years that everyone is different and no one is perfect, right? So it wasn't perfect, but I probably could have keep it. And I mean, it's not a huge mistake. It's just, even personally, I feel bad about the way it ended. So that's one thing. Other one is, it's not career choice, but it's going back to what you talked about, your conversation with Tony Labat. My experience at the Art Institute was completely opposite. And again, I'm not trying to show off, but that was my experience. I came in and I did some pieces, and I got some amazing feedback from the teacher, from the student, right off the bat, from the first year, almost to the point where I was like walking on the cloud, like I'm the best of the best. And I think it's not something I could have controlled. I think that's actually something they could have controlled, and maybe not to say to me stuff that they did. I didn't know much. I was older, but I didn't know about art world. The word that some teacher told me, completely, we say in Hebrew, your urine go up to your head. That's what happened to me for 2 years. My urine was up in my head. I was the star of the show in my eyes, and that was really bad. That was really bad. It's like exactly the opposite of what I talked before, what I wanted from the art institute. I want to get critique, and I did get critique, but that feeling that I was good did not help. I was cocky. I pushed out some people that I stepped on a lot of teacher toes, which was actually came back to me later. Just on a note, they graduated me as I didn't pass. I was, even though I had 2 shows already scheduled, in their eyes, I passed with reservation because I'm not ready. I actually took Tony Labat to lunch after that and asked him, Tony, so what do you mean I'm not ready? Can you tell me when I'm going to be ready? So that was the end. The end was kind of flip. It went down, not because, they were trying to get at me for some other reasons, but I think that kind of overly excitement and support in the beginning was not good for me. I wish it was different. So if I could have done it differently, I would be much more humble and much more self-criticizing myself during those beginning of the years. And being humble is really important, and it's not part of the food we eat as artists. We have big egos and we think we're the best, and we talk about. And I wish there was a class how to be humble as an artist, how to, don't get the stuff to go up to your head. You're just one of millions, and you're not the best, and you're not so good as you think you are as a student. Of course, when you go out, reality teach you right away that that's how it is.
I remember in grad school, it's funny because now that we're talking, I can't remember whether it was a conversation I overheard of teachers talking or of other students talking, but I remember having a conversation or hearing a conversation of people talking about like who of the graduating class is going to like make it, like who's the ones that are like the good ones that are going to be successful. And I remember pretty much everybody was just like Yoram. Like everybody was just like,
even it worked against me. It worked against me.
Interesting.
Because I can tell you superlative that I heard that I wish I would not. I remember Doug Hall came to me. It's funny that you mentioned him. He came to me in the beginning after the first project, that Inside Out furniture that I did, and because I said he knew that I was conflicted. I think I talked to him before I even joined.
It was a desk, right? Because I think I remember that.
Yeah,
piece.
It was a little furniture, a little girl furniture.
Uh-huh.
And he knew that I wasn't sure if I want to go to CCA or Art Institute. He knew that. And so he came to me after I showed that project and said, Yoram, I'm really happy that you came to the Art Institute. I know he had good intentions, but that with other things, it's kind of built. I don't think it's good. I don't think it was really bad for me. I was too comfortable. I was too sure of myself. And then I started behaving in a way that I don't think helped me in any way later. It could have been worse. I don't think I'm a show off. I think I'm not. That's not me. But I do get a little arrogant, and I do, especially in my relationship with the teachers. I did step on some teachers' toes in a way that I'm embarrassed even to think, because I thought I know better. And so, yeah, that's the one thing. It's not. It didn't affect my career as much, because once I left, I was not dependent on any of those people that I hurt maybe, or I not hurt, but hurt their ego. And the not passed in, or I wasn't, their statement, I'm not ready, just was a wash under the bridge, because like I said, I had 2 shows, I had then later 2 galleries. It did not affect my career in any way. The one thing is I was never called back to the Art Institute until today, not to do a lecture, not to do anything. And it could have been because the same people I bumped against are still there or run the thing. I had 0 contact with the alumni, nothing, from them, which, sometimes is a little kind of painful because I'm here in San Francisco, but, I don't need them. I have a gallery in LA. My work is shown outside of the city, but I have 0 in my own town. That has to do also probably with how I behaved in the community here. I keep in touch with students, peers, but nothing with except from one teacher, but even with him, it's kind of ups and down. it's more about the community. That's something that I could have done differently, I think. But career-wise, I think I cannot remember major things. I think I was very much involved in my career, very much pushing it, and not just and doing a lot of actions to develop it and to bring my work out there. So I always tell students, you got to do it yourself. You cannot have wait for other to do it. Like, you got to be pushy, and you got to work around the system, and you got to bug people, and you got to, when you have the energy, you apply to all these other public art or other competition. And you got to be aggressive and dynamic about it. And I think I'm happy with the way I did it.
Coming from a writer, I will take that as truth. Yes.
Yeah.
The person who wrote a screenplay. Who knew that? In the Bahamas, no less. You wrote a screenplay in the Bahamas.
I was writing a screenplay with another woman. She was really at the helm. I had done some film classes. I'd taken some screenwriting classes at NYU, and I was assisting her for 3 years. So it was a crazy story.
I have this whole picture in my mind where you like laying on the beach, like just like laying under an umbrella, like, and she's talking and you're just taking notes, kind of thing.
It was a lot like that. It was a bit like she was in her late 70s into the early 80s when I worked with her. So she was really elderly. She had been best friends with Doris Duke. So she had inherited some of Doris's money, and she was putting it all towards the film. And she had built herself a Roman ruin it had crumbling walls and lizards and ivy going up, with a pool that was fed by the ocean that she swam in every day. And she served guava cheesecake when friends would come to visit or people would come to visit, because she was kind of a legend on the island. And she'd always serve this guava cheesecake. So some days we were working, I only worked mornings, but some days we were working on the screenplay. Other days there were visitors, and we would talk. And I was like her little, I don't know, her young friend and collaborator. It was a really crazy job. Yeah, it was really, really interesting.
How have you been? Or what? So what's your life like these days? You're in Florida and you are...
Yeah. I think I'm still getting over empty nest syndrome, which has been about 3 years now. So I stayed in New York a year after she finished school, and she moved to Ohio. So, because that's where the guy she married is from. So that last year in New York was kind of, just wasn't fun anymore. And I wanted to have more space, have a house. Ideally, my plan was to move to Florida to save more money to be able to travel more. So yeah, I moved here July 2019, and I finally signed up or made plans to do a residency in Italy September 2019. That was my first and only residency, speaking of your other podcast, because I know you talk about that. I was just waiting till my daughter had gone off and gotten settled and I could commit to something like that. So that was great. That was 2 weeks in northern Italy. And then I came back and I went to Budapest for a week and came back to Florida. And within a few months, or 5-6 months, it was COVID. So that was sort of the end of that. Yeah. And, ironically, where I moved is totally expensive, and really, it's like the Williamsburg of Florida or something. Like, it's cool, it's hip, it's expensive. So
you moved to try and save money into an expensive neighborhood.
Well, it wasn't as expensive at the time. It just like skyrocketed in the past 2 years. So, which is good. I mean, the quality of life is nice. I mean, it's living in Brooklyn by the end there. I mean, so many things were closed and people were leaving and everyone's sort of struggling. And so It's nice here. I spend a lot of time running, training for a half marathon. It's not as easy to travel from here, obviously, as it is from New York.
Where exactly in Florida are you?
St. Petersburg, it's near Tampa, so it's like on the Gulf Coast, central. It's about 3.5 hours from Miami, I guess, although I haven't been to Miami since I was a teenager. But this year I'm going to go to Art Basel and all that finally, which will probably give me total anxiety and I'll be completely overwhelmed. But
Why would you be overwhelmed by Art Basel?
like 9 million people, I don't know.
Oh, okay, because of COVID, basically, is what you're saying. I'm like,
No, I've lived through COVID in Florida. If I can get through that, like,
Florida's kind of a shit show with COVID, isn't it?
oh yeah, like I've been back to New York a lot, and I feel safer in New York than I do here, for sure. Like, there's not a question there of like, you show your vaccine card, you go to a museum, a show, a restaurant, it's fine. That would never happen here, never.
Wait, you all actually still have the physical cards? Because we have like a QR code on our cell phones here in Europe.
Yeah, one of my friends who's Belgian was telling me that she has the QR code, and if she doesn't get her booster, it's not going to renew the QR code and all that. So yeah, I still have a card. I mean, Florida has no system because they don't care. I think you can get the thing on your phone in New York. Yeah. So anyhow, Basel will be interesting because over the years, the galleries that I've shown with and still show with are usually in Miami, not at Basel, but like I think there's something called Untitled Art Fair, and there's different art fairs. So it'll be good to show my face. Yeah, I honestly didn't care that much then. I mean, I'm way more sensitive about stuff now. I want to be the badass I was when I was like 28, 29 years old.
Well, that's interesting. When okay, I feel like I'm far more sensitive now than I was when I was then, but I was very arrogant. I was a horribly arrogant, self-righteous, like all those kinds of bad things, kid when I was in school. And now I'm far more sensitive about these like criticism of my work. Whereas it's funny, I used to have a thick skin, and that sort of has gone away in time, and I don't know why.
Me neither. That's the thing, and it's really holding me back, I think.
Yeah, it is interesting though how we become more sensitive as we get older. Because like I never thought I'm far more sensitive. Well, it's funny. Like, I mean, I'm far more sensitive on a like personal level, but I think part of it is that my work has become more personal. Like it used to be very sort of like generic and universal and like, oh, everybody can relate to this bullshit. And now it's very much like, it's me. Like I'm putting my thoughts, psychoses, my issues like in the art. And so it's when people challenge it feels much more personal because the work is much more personal.
Right. Yeah, it's and I think that's sort of where I'm at too. It's like, okay, what am I going to make work about now? I mean, it's not about my daughter anymore, and it's fine because kids are supposed to grow up. So whatever I do is definitely going to be probably deeply personal. Like I'm not suddenly going to become a landscape photographer. So I got to be ready for like whatever that's going to bring. So
I still to this day tell my students about the smooth white wall that you did in the Diego Rivera gallery.
That was between me, Jason Wang, and Ricardo Rivera. And we did a collaboration. It was called The Perfect Wall. And we almost got kicked out of school for that one.
I remember.
Oh, yeah,
I was
you were
the
the
in
guy.
charge of the gallery.
You're in charge of the gallery. That's right.
No, but you put me in the middle. Like, that's it. I was in the middle of it because, like, I just worked there. I didn't really care. And I actually loved the piece.
Yeah.
But it was my responsibility to like save the mural from all the dust you were creating. so like you put me in a horrible position on that one. But
yeah,
I still love the piece, and
it looked like winter in there. There was so much dust. It looked like winter. It was really quite
Yeah.
And and then the piece was the perfect. The perfect wall was perfect. It was.
It was
You walked
beautiful.
up to it, and like you walk into a void.
Oh, I loved it. And I still tell people about I also still tell my students about you did a set of work that I'm not sure if I have the details if I remember correctly, but like you made some artwork that looked like it was made by like 7 different artists, and you created a curated, quote unquote, curated show.
Mhm.
And then you hired actors to act like they were the artists who created those individuals, and you created scripts for them and sort of character studies for them, so that basically these hired actors acted like the artists that made all this art, but it was all done by you.
Yeah, that was an experiment, and I don't think anybody got that one.
I loved it. I thought it was absolutely
There's
brilliant.
there's something else that no one else knows about, but the gallery, the Diego Rivera gallery. I did a piece where I embedded a clock in the wall, and then I just covered it up. And I'm guessing the clock is still in the fucking wall. And I wanted to do a piece where I excavate the clock, and of course the time has stopped, but I think it's still in there.
I don't know. Would be fascinating. What kind of clock was it? Like a watch or like a
It
desk
was
clock?
a clock like that I took from one of the studios. It's like one of those old,
those are
big dial clocks. Yeah, the big black and white hands.
Wait, I think you told me that you were doing it, and I remember being just like, whatever, I don't care.
It's still in there because it was coated in resin. I couldn't get it out of the fucking wall, so I had to fucking just basically cover up. But it was pretty deep in there, so I'm guessing it's still in there.
It might be.
I want to find it. I want to go do there, but I don't know if SFI exists anymore. So,
well, the building is still there.
Yeah.
Because I found that students that I related to, that I see myself in my students, this confusion and not knowing what the fuck is going on, and being pushed into like jobs, as opposed to helping the student understand who they are. And I think that that's one of the most important parts of the arts. And I really enjoy participating in that with my students and really blowing their minds. Like when they come in and they're like, cool and stuff. And then at the end, they're like, wow, what the fuck just happened? That's the most amazing experience for me in teaching. So, and I think that you would understand that sometimes when we're speaking about the arts, because we've been through this experience, that we naturally, I don't think about the things that I'm teaching my students. I'm really concentrated on trying to figure out how to relate new experiences to them. So whether it's through drawing or through manipulating software, digital art, I'm now also teaching us 3D design. It's really, really enjoyable for me.
And that is a whole other story right now in the US. It's maybe something you don't feel so much in Europe, but in the US, there is a very, very, how should I say, there's a special focus on a certain demographic right now. Like all the funds go to a certain demographic. And that includes artist residencies, and it includes shows, and it includes grants, it includes everything. So if you don't fit into that demographic, which I don't.
Which is not basically white man or white woman.
Yes, exactly.
I'll be even more specific. White, heterosexual, cis man and woman.
You got it. I didn't want to say it that way. You got
it's
it
okay.
exactly.
I can edit it out. It's fine.
Yes. So I'm basically, I actually, at this point, I sometimes feel like I'm discriminated because of my skin color, because actually I'm like my socioeconomic status is exactly that of the people they are now trying to maybe prioritize is too strong of a word, but to support, right? But I have the wrong skin color. So I'm kind of at this point where I'm kind of, where I'm wondering, well, a lot of my American friends say, well, this has to happen and it's going to change again. And, it's just a time now because they certain people were underfunded, and I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm in almost my mid 50s now, and how much time do I have? If it's going to change again in 50 years, in 10 years or so, So I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, I just have to. At the moment, I'm just kind of hunkering down and waiting. What's going to happen?
I feel the same way. Like, there are days where I sit around and I think, like, fuck, I'm a representative of the patriarchy that has ruled the arts industry for centuries. And at the time when I'm maturing, suddenly they don't want to hear from me anymore. Like, I literally some days feel like I just missed my window. Like, if I was just like 20 years earlier, I probably could have been doing fabulously in the arts industry, but I feel like I missed the boat. Like, I'm just a little late. Like, and I say a little late, like in the entire history of art, kind of like just freaking 20 years too late.
I agree, and I feel like it might even just be 10 years actually, like even 10 years earlier. I mean, not even just like even just not even just in the art world per se, but also in terms of living an artist's life and being able to afford a life and to afford like a living situation and all of those kinds of things in the studio and all of these things, and somehow securing yourself a space. I think if I had come to the Bay Area just 10 years earlier, maybe even just 5 years earlier, I don't know, I really think my situation would have been very different. I mean, my situation is also probably a little special because I came into this country as an immigrant,
I like expat more than immigrant.
Yeah, maybe an expat. Yeah. Either way, I do think there is, like, right now, I feel like, wow, what am I going to do? I'm not getting into anything anymore. I mean, even the calls here in the US, they say we are especially looking for, people of LGBTQ plus, people of color, people of minorities, people, it's like that is now what's number one. They look at the person and the person's background and ethnicity or sexual orientation first. That is number one. And then they're looking at the artwork. Whereas I always, I grew up with the idea that it's all about your artwork and not your person.
I'm with you. Like, I continually rail, and I'm sure if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear it. I've said it numerous times, but like, I wish the art world was based on merit. Like, you make good work. So whether that's technically, conceptually, whatever, but like, you make good work and you reap the rewards or the benefits of that. But unfortunately, there's no part of the arts world that has anything to do these days with the merit of your work. It has to do with connections and networks and skin color and sexual orientation and all these other kinds of things, like, and a lot of the people, like you also said earlier, like, I keep hearing a lot of people going like, oh yes, I do this in my studio, and I'm like, so how do you make a living? Oh, well, my husband pays for everything, or my wife pays for everything. So like, they've got some sense of financial security, so they quite honestly can make whatever the fuck they want because they've got like a lawyer spouse or something like this that basically funds everything they do. So like, there's a lot of things that make it really, really difficult to just be a good practicing artist in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, that's exactly my experience. I mean, almost everyone I meet, if I meet a new person somewhere, a person, an artist, talking to the first time, it's always that same thing. Oh, my husband does this and that. I'm like, oh, fuck, sorry. So, I'm like, it's almost always that. It's sort of, and then what has happened to me too, what I feel happens sometimes is that exactly those people are actually buying, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, they are kind of setting a certain precedence that actually hurts us and hurts the whole artist community. let's give you an example. Like this was somewhere where I was supposed to give a talk, and I was asking, how much they would be paying me. And they basically said, well, so-and-so artist did this for free, and I'm like, well, and then I looked who so-and-so artist is. And of course it's a local person who has money or something, and it's just, it's really, really hurting us, because those people think they are helping the artwork by giving for free, by giving their services and their skills and everything for free, or doing workshops for free or something. But then arts organizations, including nonprofits, they get used to that and they want it to be that way. And they are suddenly asking for it to be free, That is a huge, huge issue.
Well, there's the other side of that too, which is like, one of the Biden's son is now suddenly a painter. So he's now selling paintings. Well, he's a hobbyist at best as far as the quality of his work. He has no formal training, no nothing. And quite honestly, I think he has no actual talent. But because he's Biden's son, he's getting $50,000 per painting. So like then that skews what people think the value of a piece of art is. And of course, then it also diminishes merit and longevity. So like, those of us who've been in the industry for 20 plus years, we can't get $50,000 for a painting, but Biden, who just like decides to start painting on a whim, suddenly can get $50,000 because his father's the president. Like,
yeah, I mean, there's so much weird stuff going on in the arts, I guess once you are up, it's the same thing with people, artists who are really up in the higher ranks. They can do whatever they like, and it's going to be a ton of money, it's worth a ton of money. If we did exactly the same thing and we did it first, it would be worth nothing, So there's that, definitely. The art world is just a crazy place. It's just a crazy thing.
Also, during the pandemic and even before that, I was doing a lot of mushrooms, and that helped kill the ego a lot, and realize your position. And yeah, so a lot of it has to do with, and I'm a big advocate of mushrooms. I mean, I've had super like bad depression and stuff like that, and that has helped me since December 2019. I haven't been depressed since then, which is a miracle for me, So I think that, and that not even just that, it just helps me think about new things in different ways and be more empathetic to people, and it really helped create the things that I needed to create now with the gallery and focus on what is important.
Yeah, just to be clear, like I support psychedelic drug use. I'll do microdosing psilocybin whenever I can get my hands on it, things like this. So like, absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember you used to do the St. John's wort back in the day, and I always think about that. And so yeah, and I always think about that, and and you were very open about why you needed to do it, and that was really something that stuck with me.
What did I say back then?
It kept your mood, and it maintained your ability to deal with me, because I think you were more had a lot of anxiety about a lot of things, maybe.
Yeah, well, the thing that most of you all didn't know at that time was that oh no, I'm perfectly fine with talking about my shit, but I had just quit being a drug addict. So my move to San Francisco was my way of cleaning up. So I quit.
That's the worst place to quit fucking drugs.
I know. I quit heroin and cocaine, and I moved to San Francisco. And so that was my sort of process of going clean. And so, I was doing a lot of things to try and sort of reconnect and re-find a balance in my life. So like, taking that, the party lifestyle, the roadie lifestyle that I had and all that, and try and find some sort of equilibrium and some joy, without drugs, which was very difficult at the time. Yeah. And of course, now 20 years later, I've been clean for 23 years of like the hardcore stuff, but I will still I'll still smoke pot. I'll still do CBDs. I'll do psilocybin, microdosing. I'm good. I'm really good with all, like, I look forward to a little later in my life where like I can really like indulge in that a bit more.
You could do it now, my friend. I'm telling you.
Not in Prague. Like, I'm not comfortable enough in Prague.
I'm on
I
mushrooms right now. No joke.
Somehow I believe you.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, you should believe me.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate of it. I've always been an advocate of natural substances for
Yeah, me
drugs and opening your minds. I mean, the way I got into art in the first place was I took a bunch of LSD in high school, and I wanted to recreate some things that I saw while on LSD. And so
That's the worst
literally,
idea.
yeah, that's how I came up with my first artistic ideas.
I remember I did acid when I was young, and I saw this sketchbook where I keep everything I've ever written. I still have it. Everything I've ever written. I really, really small. And then there's one page where I'm fucking tripping, and I was like, at the time, I was like, these are great ideas. And then I look back, and they're fucking stupid. It was the worst ideas ever. I think the only drug I can actually work on is high potency sativa weed, and then or a little bit of mushrooms. That's it. I think I can do it that way, but anything else I can't fucking function.
Yeah,
Can't think
I
of a
love
good thing.
cocaine. Cocaine is like, boy, I am super productive.
I only smoked weed and did mushrooms. I didn't do anything else until I got to San Francisco. So
Yeah.
Mom and Dad, if you're hearing this, don't pay attention to that. But my dad, when I left school, he was like, you have an opportunity to try everything. Give it once a shot, and but know who you are, and that's what I did. So, and I think that's part of being in a.
It seems to be working for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really party that much anymore. I just do like mushrooms, and that's about it. I do a lot of mushrooms.
Just on like between me and you, like, so like, are you talking about like because when I do mushrooms, I fucking trip balls. Like, I will do a ton of mushrooms.
No,
So
I don't do a ton.
Okay, so it's sort of more like a microdosing, like a stem or a cap. Where
so I have
like,
these gummies that are already split up, so I can know if I take 1 or 5, 1 or 2. I'm on 2 right now. I can talk and stuff like that, and not have the nervousness of. It takes the sharpness of life off, and then.
Wait, is it legal in California?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I was
like, I'm moving there now.
I mean, it's quite easy to procure here. Anything is pretty easy to procure here. Yeah, but I never like really super trip. I haven't done like a full on super trip where I'm like fucking like seeing colors and like woo. I haven't done that in a while.
I only super tripped. I never did the pansy stuff.
Yeah, that's
when I was
back in the
kid.
day. Oh, on the kid, yeah, super trip. But like nowadays, I'll do enough to maybe see some like, Tetris blocks. But otherwise, not that much. Enough to have funs and giggles sometimes when you're a bunch of friends. I like to do that. But, on a daily, not even a daily basis, but just sometimes if I'm feeling a little anxious, I'll just do some, and then I could get through and do the work that I need to do. Otherwise, I'd probably just lie in bed and not do shit.
It's funny. My wife and I both do. Well, I shouldn't tell about my wife. Let me rephrase that.
We were out of this.
Well, I'm not going to out her. But, okay, fuck it. My wife and I both do microdosing psilocybin, but it's funny. Like, she does it to work, so she does it to sit in front of the computer and get her job done, and it focuses her in a really great way.
Yeah.
Me, when I take it, I cannot sit in front of the computer. I have to be active and moving and doing.
There's a limit of that.
Things.
I think there's, when you take too much mushrooms, like the phone becomes, anything screen wise becomes fucking alien to you, and you just can't do it, and it just feels awkward. We're having that relationship with technology, but if you just like do a little bit, be microdose wise, I think I think it's possible to. I mean, I'm here right now.
Well, we both did the same dose.
Oh.
And I was like, I cannot sit in front of my computer. So I just went into the studio, and I had an amazing time in the studio. So I can create art magnificently while microdosing, but I cannot sit in front of a computer. Whereas my wife can absolutely sit in front of a computer doing it, and she
Mm.
doesn't see any effects of it when she's not. So it's
Yeah,
very interesting
there's
how
different
it affects
people.
people differently. Yeah.
There's different people. I mean, people sometimes don't even like doing it without being nature, and I'm not really a nature boy, so I like to do it even around a lot of other people that aren't doing it. It's entertaining for me because I do get bored often, so it's entertaining for me to think about things in a different way. I'm really a big fan of human dynamics and figuring out behaviors of people. So I like kind of sitting there and kind of thinking about why they are doing the things that they are doing in front of me.
I've had so many good experiences on mushrooms. I mean, it's really great. But anyways, we digressed a lot.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's go back.
For those people who do go down that path and that career that where they are practicing artists and they sell in galleries and they're doing all this, like there's a certain temperament, a certain personality that can do that well. And then there are some people like I mean, to a certain extent, me probably, like I like just what you were just saying, the freedom to just make whatever am moved to make, whatever, to talk about whatever thing I want to talk about through my art, not being pressured to or expected to by XYZ outside influences. And I think there's a certain temperament of creative people that can do that magnificently, but it takes a very special kind of person to do that.
Absolutely, I agree. It's definitely a temperament and a character. There's nothing wrong. I mean, I remember someone in the art institute. She saw me and with my cell phone. And I didn't dress up like most of the artists in the school. You know, I was a designer. You know, I was professional, very clean. And we talked, and then she was like, one point she said, "I'm very suspicious of you." I love that word. A lot of students use. I'm very suspicious about you being an artist. Meaning, she was pretty direct. Like, are you going to continue doing art after? I mean, are you really an artist? You know, she didn't say that, but the word suspicious. That's how I interpreted it. Because people think that there's a stereotype of how you should look and what you should do and how you should talk and what you. No, there is none. People hate Jeff Koons, especially in the art institute. I love the guy. I think he's like his comments on art world, everything he's doing, and he doesn't. He comes from being a broker, and he doesn't probably. I haven't met him, but he probably doesn't look like how people imagine art, or he doesn't. You know, his work is a lot about that.
He's always in a very slick suit or very well fashionable, and he looks like he's gotten a lot of Botox done. His skin is extremely tight.
I mean, the guy married Cicciolina. What do you want? I mean, it's like
true.
But what I'm trying to say is that there is no one way, and it is depends who you are, your character, your background, what you preference in life. You know, some people don't care about not having family, which is takes a big chunk of. Some people can do family, have a family, and do art their way. It really depends on you. I mean, I know myself. I know my character. Even if someone came to me and said, "I'm going to pay you for the rest of your life now. Go and do work in your studio. Don't worry about anything else." I could not even done it 100%. Just sit in my studio and make art. I don't think so. I need to get out of.
That sounds magical. I would absolutely do that.
I know, and maybe I would take it on if someone would offer it to me. But I think I would need to get a break from that. There is something that is a very, and I'm sure you know, there's something that is self-damaging, can get you crazy if you just live in that world 100%. For me, I need to get out of that. Otherwise, it's, what's the word? Self-destructing.
I don't think I've ever known anybody who's just 100% artist. Actually, it's not true. I do know some people that do that. They burn out very quickly is a lot of what happens.
Yeah, but if you talk, look at those who really made it, like the big names. I mean, I don't know them personally, but Damien Hirst, if you want, or Rauschenberg, if you want. He actually came to the Art Institute. It was a very nice man.
Matthew Barney.
Yeah, I mean, those people are doing art 100%. They don't need a gig on the side, I think, right?
we're using a different vocabulary. I'm thinking 100% like 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, like doing it as a job every day. Those people, they take like 3 months off, they regenerate,
Oh,
and then they come back to work.
yeah. But what I mean is they don't mix it with other thing that they're doing.
Right.
To
I
me,
got you.
it's important. To me, it's actually good to stop doing it for a while and do something else.
Yeah. Okay. I got
But
that.
again, if that person would come and if you know them, send them my way. Uh, maybe it'll be different. But from my experience of doing it for 2 years full time, every morning going to the fabricator and working that big commission, it was pretty difficult after that, for me. Yeah.
You're so jolly.
Why shouldn't I be? I
Yeah.
mean, I've got a job where I get to just sit and talk with like-minded people about
Yeah.
something we love.
Yeah. So essentially, you are doing something very similar to me. It's a community-based aspect. It's approaching it in this way instead of it being artist-centric, as an artist yourself, egocentric. You're doing it, and you're bringing all these other people. And it's such a beautiful thing. You know what I'm saying? It makes sense now. You know.
But I'll tell you, I'm trying to do that. I am horrible with building a community. I mean, this goes back to like childhood bullshit.
We're Gen X, dude. Gen X are horrible at social media in general. We can't do it like the millennials. So there's an interesting thing that happens. So Gen X, we are the ones that were basically the latchkey kids. Let us do. That's why pandemic for us. The Gen Xers fucking killed it, or I killed it at least, and you did too. You let us be by ourselves with anything else worrying, and we'll fucking create something amazing. Whereas the millennials, they have a lot of problems tied with social media. Their identity is tied to it, and their idea of branding. Like for Gen Xers, the idea of branding itself, that was something we would so adamantly against, even like name brands of anything, wearing name brands or anything, or something adhering to our identity. Yeah, look at it. We just fucking wear the simplest black things or whatever, has no logos, no nothing.
I always look like a Gap ad from the 1980s. Like just that's it. You would not be able to know what I'm wearing. I'm just wearing clothes.
So the millennials have their idea of identity tied into things. It's very skewed. They obviously, it's been a problem. Any technology that has come forth is both double edged. It seems to do something that's really great, but then eventually ends up turning its head and then just fucking swallowing us whole. Okay, and then that's the same thing. But the Zers are very interesting because they are taking more of a position of the Gen Xers. But it's interesting. I talked to a lot of them. It's really interesting. They're like, we don't like what the millennials done because it's ruined their identities. We're not for the brands. We don't want these kind of sponsorships that sell our identity to these corporations that are fucking ruining the planet or whatever not. Because millennials don't really care. It's like really weird. That was the difference between us and them because they were like, and we're like, what the fuck? We can't operate like them because that's fucking fake. You know what I'm saying? And we can't do that. Gen Zers, they're take a more similar stance to us, but when they post, they're trying to make it look like it's nonchalant. It's casual, but within the casualness, this is interesting. They are trying to do several pictures and trying to get that most casual one where they're not trying to be like I am. So it's kind of an interesting thing, it's generations ago. And I think our attitude and whether it be punk or not, or against these things are coming back. So maybe it's a time for Gen Xers to actually get our fucking due diligence.
Well, I mean, it's hard. I mean, because like I was raised in the time of I was raised with Fugazi and that whole crowd, and like that ethos is very much sort of my thing. And like I'm not about standing on the rooftop saying, "Hey, here's this great thing I'm doing. Come, participate." I'm more about create a quality product, and people will find it if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah,
there. And
that's essentially what I'm doing with Epoch as well. I don't add my name to it a lot of the times. I let it be what it is because I don't want it make it about me. It's about the project. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
I know. I mean, but I'm horrible. Like the whole like podcast industry is all about the build a community, make be connected with your listeners and all this. And I'm like, I'm happy to do that. That's fine.
But there's a limit.
I'm not going to like put my time and energy into doing that. If it happens, great. But I'm not going to force it on people.
Right. I understand what you're saying. There's a certain line I have to promote in a certain way, and I promote, but I don't really like, I understand that it's not me. A lot of people who are posting, they especially millennials, they feel like it's them. This is not my posts are not a representation of me. You know what I mean? And even not even a representation of the work itself. It's just a representation. You know what I'm saying? So it's interesting to think about these things and how things are maybe going. And I think our ideologies and how we grow up may whether they're not be as hardcore or as drastic, but they are coming back, I think.
Yeah, I'm noticing a more of an interest in craftsmanship and quality and merit and things like this. Like, I feel like the past like 10, 15 years has been very much about like what you're talking about, like this branding and sort of social media focus and all this stuff. And I'm seeing a lot more people interested and engaged with people like, okay, here, I was talking with another person we graduated with, Sonia, and we had this sort of back and forth about the fact that a lot of the industry was very much about like the young star, the youth was most interesting.
Yeah.
And they sort of disregarded, well, more or less like people of our generation and people a little older than us as well. Sort of like they disregarded them in focus of youth.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is beginning to be a thing, because part of it is a little sad to me, because I feel like in the old days, the older the artist was, this sounds horrible, but like the older the artist was, the more sort of wise and experienced and knowledgeable they were. And then there was this time recently in the past like 20 years where they've been looking more towards the youth as like, oh, the superstar young artist, all this kind of crap. And now I feel like there's a little bit going back towards like a little bit more respect and admiration for the wisdom of age and experience. And so it's an interesting flow that's going on with that of interest.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's more interest that are going back to artists that are more established or have been working for a long time and that know their craft, that, and a young artist really, the unfortunate thing is that when they get picked up or something, they usually stick with that idea for a long time because it's making them money. It makes it work for them. But it's not really the fortress, but it doesn't necessarily lend to development, or really fulfilling that part of you that you need to be satiated by ideas and concepts and growing. It's not really for that. So I think we have our time and place again. You know what I'm saying? In a certain way, our whether you're late bloomers or not, you just keep on doing it, and then you find who you are. And the art world actually likes people who are confident and that don't give a fuck, and they can sense it in the work. That's always the reason why I'm like, why? What defines the difference between a grad student piece and someone that's out of grad school? And I've been trying to think about that a lot. And I think the thing that really defines it is the idea that you're not trying too hard, as in trying to impress anybody. You're not trying to get their attention. You're not trying to say, hey, look at me. You're already established your identity, and it shows in the work, and that's why maybe the things that in grad school don't necessarily, you can see in that's grad school stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's a weird question.
I do, but I think it took me longer than that. I don't think I started making the kind of work you're talking about, the I don't give a fuck about other people until about 10 or 11 years out of grad school. I'm literally like thinking through my series of works and stuff, and like I know exactly the series when I stopped giving a fuck.
Yeah, me too. Mine was in 2009.
2010.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're very close. Yeah.
And that's an important thing. People can sense that, and when you stop kind of caring about the art world and what they would think of you, you start to really kind of be more experimental and then actually doing things that are really fucking interesting because they're your interests. They're not anybody else's interests. They're your things that are interested. I didn't know that I'm going to do sci-fi dorky video projections. I don't know. And then it worked.
No, I kind of saw that about you.
Yeah. Thanks. I don't know if that's a compliment or not. But
I love sci-fi dorky stuff.
Good.
It's
Me
fine.
too.
It's good. I'm on your side.
But yeah, it's interesting how careers go in general, and how people have stuck in or that, or I wouldn't say even people who have given up and quit art. I think the mentality is still there. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of it doesn't matter if you still don't really pursue it. It matters if it eats you up that you can't.
To wrap this up, I'd like to thank you for listening all the way to the end of the conversation. We would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with your friends, family, coworkers, studio mates, or anybody with an interest in arts and creative endeavors. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. The audio was edited by Kush Audio Services, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Art Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.